Being a true flipping maker is fun. I do stuff for other people, but most of the times I don't have time to do stuff for myself. I mean, for my home. We're not talking about workshop here. There is always time for the workshop. But anyways, for some unexplainable reason, I have my TV standing just on the floor in my living room. We're renting our place and somehow we just never got around of buying a stand for the TV. We just couldn't find a one that we like, so I decided to make a one. Pretty simple idea, steel frame, glass doors. I'm still thinking about what should I use for the top, and I've already started working on this project while you were not looking. I'm like few hours in, I did a little 3D model. I'm still learning 3D modeling, but it really makes my life a lot easier because I know all the sizes are going to be correct and I can plan everything in advance and just basically less screw-ups, I would say. And I've already cut my metal. I'm gonna clean it up now and start welding. But before we move any further with the video, I would like to remind you that you should consider becoming a sponsor of the channel by clicking the button under this video. By becoming a sponsor, you can help me to create more videos like this. I'm an independent creator, so it's going to be a great motivator for me to do more stuff. You can choose from different pricing plans and pay as less as a cup of coffee. And if it's not something for you, you can always make my day by leaving a like, subscribing to the channel and writing a comment. As simple as that. It's important for me that you do all this free. It's gonna help my channel grow. Thank you for cooperation, and let's continue with the build. I try to always take my time to clean the metal well. It's so much nicer to work with it when it's free of grease and it's just not so dirty. And then it was time for drilling. I drill before welding anything because it's easier to bring smaller pieces to the press rather than bringing a big welded construction. I think setting up everything square and parallel is actually the hardest bit about welding, at least for myself, and I take a lot of time to make sure that I've set everything up correctly. It can be tricky without the fixture table, and usually once you've done welding, you remove all of the clamps and you're still gonna get some warpage in the metal or gonna lose some diagonals, just the part of the welding. I'm using 2mm thick 20 by 20mm square tubing. Think it's going to be perfect for my TV stand. It's going to be slim, but at the same time elegant. And this is what my welds looked like after grinding. I try not to touch the inside welds, I think they are important for the structural capabilities, and that's what my setup looked like to weld both of the sides geometrically correct to each other. These fireball squares really improved my welding game by about 25%. And if you'd like to build one of these stands for yourself, I'm going to include a link in the description where you can get my plans. And here is the main framing. To weld the doors, I'm gonna use this template that I've cut on a CNC router. It is really important to have the door frames to be as geometrically perfect as possible, because if they are not, it's going to look like crap and possibly the doors wouldn't even work. And I think I absolutely nailed it with this template. I'm not sure if anybody else are using these kind of templates, but I do, and it works perfectly almost every time. I need to have a consistent 3mm gap all around the door framing, so I'm using shims from 3mm plywood and tacking the hinges up. And to clamp the doors perfectly flush to the frame, I'm using just some scrap metal, and this scrap metal also works as the rest for the hinges. So I can rest the hinges on that metal and weld all of them in one straight line. It's important to have a little gap between the hinges and the framing, so that when you open the doors, the hinges are not scratching the paint on the framing. And once I've tacked all of the hinges, I could remove the shims and check that my doors are working correctly, and I was really excited to finally see how it works. It's as good as I could possibly get it. These weld-on hinges are not adjustable, so it's super tricky to get the doors straight. I'm gonna take the doors off now, bring them outside for a little grind, and I will continue working on a frame. I'm gonna have a glass shelf on the bottom, but I can't just put the glass straight on these, so I kind of have to make a little step here for the glass to sit, and ideally I want it to be just a little lower than that section here. So I'm gonna use these 10 by 10 mil, just a square section, to create this little step down. Or a step off, I don't know. I also had to make a pretty similar setup on the sides of my TV stand, because the glass needed to have that extra framing to be glued onto something. For the backing of my TV stand, I've used a 1mm thick aluminum plate, and I've riveted it to the back of the frame. There is no specific reason to use aluminum, that's just what I've had available to me at the moment. The whole setup will be a little bit lighter, which is always nice. I've made this little hole for the cables to go through. I plan to have my PlayStation inside of the shelf. To be honest, I kinda eyeballed it, and it turned out to be a perfect location for the cables later. I'm sorry for the corrupted audio, but here I'm explaining that I've used an orbital sander to sand the aluminum plates to create some tooth for the paint to grab, and I've also welded a stopper plate behind the doors to stop the doors in a perfect position, and I recessed that stopper plate 2mm inside of the frame to allow some space for the rubber dampers. I've also welded another leg in the middle to support the framing a little bit better, because I've noticed that it was sagging in the middle, and now it's all perfect. And here you can see how adjusting the legs could adjust the position of the doors a little bit better. I took it apart and submitted to get powder coated, and 2 weeks later this is the glass that I've picked for the project to continue our elegant but slim look. I was really excited to finally unwrap it and see the color. Here are the threaded inserts for the legs. And the rubber adjustable feet. And finally, I could start installing the glass. I was using some clear silicone to glue the glass to the frame, and it worked just beautifully. All of the glass I've used is tempered, it makes it a lot more break resistant. For the bottom shelf, I've used some rubber dampers to install it in place, and I've picked the black glass to go on the bottom. It looked just amazing. And here is how I solved the middle shelf problem. I've made that removable bar so I can remove it while installing the side glass, and then I can put it back in place and secure it with a screw to install the middle shelf. There must be a better solution for this, but this is what I came up with. And I've glued the middle shelf in place because I want it to be non-movable. The glass for the shelves is 6mm thick, so it's not scared of any load that I can put on it. And now it was the time for the handles. These are the ones that my wife picked, and to attach them to the door I had to countersink the screw from the other side so it's not sticking out and it's not in the way of the glass. Then I could secure the handles and install the glass. I also added some rubber dampers on the stopper plate so the metal is not slamming on metal and the doors are closing softly. For the top, I've decided to use a laminated particle board, and I found it in exactly the same color as the frame. However, it was a little bit too thick for our liking, and Roma suggested to recess it into the frame by routering out a little bit from the thickness of the board. Then we glued it to the frame with some clear construction adhesive, and finally the beauty was ready to be transported into its new home. Wifey was late from work that day, so we brought it in while she was out, and when she finally made it back home,
oh, it's actually a lot of space.
She was really excited to finally load it up with stuff and have our TV off the ground. I think it's like one of my favorite projects in the recent times. It made me really happy when I saw that my wife actually liked it, and now I have this urge to kind of make more stuff for our home. I think this is going to be it for today's video. Let me know what do you think of this build. I personally really enjoyed working on this project. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Check out the plans if you want to build one of those for yourself. and also consider becoming a sponsor. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!